Hello, Manchester, and welcome back to Ward 13. This week's guest is Alderman Bill Barry. And Bill, you are a very busy person. It took me 5 months to get you on, and that's why we're taping 2 episodes in one day. And the thing is, Alderman Barry is also a working police officer. He might, if he gets any calls, we might have to cut a little, so the show might be a little inelegant. That is, you are a very busy man, aren't you, Bill?
Yeah, I am. But I enjoy it. I enjoy keeping busy, and obviously my work as a police officer, and then alderman, and then husband and father.
I would say, though, you have a rather extraordinary career as a police officer, don't you? You were the 2007 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year from the the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children?
Correct.
And you were also decorated by the FBI, which is a very high honor for someone that was a sheriff's department. Yeah, I mean, usually the FBI decorates their own agents.
Their own, yeah.
Yes.
Especially, in this case, it was a person that was he was one of their FBI 10 most wanted fugitives, and I was able to find him.
Was that your expertise? I understand also you have expertise in cold cases, and we can get into that in a bit. One of the recent cold cases that had just been cracked, you had a role in. But is your expertise in investigation?
The last 17 years I was with the sheriff's office, I was focusing, and I ended up retiring as a lieutenant, and I was in charge of the fugitive unit, and it was all investigations where you're trying to track down people that are wanted, and you get to be pretty good at it. You get to you develop a lot of very good contacts, and it's just you've got to get out there. You've got to start talking to people and do it the old way. You've got to start knocking on doors and meeting people. Just try to find out what the computers are great now, but you try to find out anything and everything that the person that you're looking for is doing or was doing, or habits that he or she may have.
Now, I've known you now for, it's getting almost 2 years now. This is the first I heard you were a lieutenant. Bill Barry is a modest man, I'll tell you that. I find out things about you almost every day. And in the sheriff's department, what's higher than a lieutenant besides the chief?
You have the captain and the chief deputy, and then obviously the sheriff.
So that's about, you were a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Just like Joe Friday in the original Dragnet, where he's a lieutenant at the end. But when they did the color series, they put him back to a sergeant for some reason. And now you're with the Auburn Police Department.
Yes. I actually retired from the sheriff's office in June 1st, 2011. And then 2 weeks later, June 14th, I was working part-time, and I have been working part-time with the Auburn Police Department. I enjoy law enforcement, and it was good. I just didn't want to let go, so my intentions initially were to work a few days a week.
It's not so much just letting go, Bill. I've never seen a person so dedicated to the community. In many, many different levels, from sports with the little ones, all the way up to affecting society on a macro level. But the thing is, the Union Leader had a story, I think, a couple weeks ago about a cold case that got cracked. And I found that you had a significant role in that, didn't you? I don't know how much you can talk about that.
We can discuss it. I mean, it was back in December 26th, the day after Christmas, 2001, George Jodwin, who actually owned Mr. I Buy and Sell here in Manchester, right in Granite Square, was murdered out in Auburn. He was shot multiple times in the head, and it was 2001. When I started with the Auburn Police in June 14th of 2011, Bobby Jodwin, who's George's brother, had called me and heard that I was working for Auburn, and he asked if I would be interested in working his brother's case. So I told him he'd have to contact the chief, which is Ed Picard. And so the chief brought me in and asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. I said sure. So the whole month of July and August of 2011, I concentrated on reading through all the old reports and interviews and things like that, crime scene photos, get to know the players that were involved back then, or people that the state police interviewed.
Did they call those, is that what you call a person of interest?
Suspects, yeah, persons of interest. That's what that's what you'll see a lot nowadays, is persons of interest. But ironically, the person that we ended up arresting, he was interviewed, but unfortunately wasn't really on the radar as a suspect or a person of interest. But at the end of August, I after pretty much exhausting everything I could do by myself, I contacted Bobby Freitas, and Bobby Freitas and I are good friends.
And who is Bobby Freitas?
He retired from the Manchester Police Department and was actually working with the Cold Case Unit out in Concord. So I called him up and asked if there's possibility that he could be assigned to this case, and again, it was right mid to late August. So we started working on it together. We started going around talking to people that were interviewed in the past, introducing ourselves, telling them that there's going to come a time where we're going to need to sit down and interview them, and Arthur Collins was one of them. And it was probably mid-September.
And who is Arthur Collins?
He's the guy that got arrested for the murder.
Right.
And
okay.
He
was originally under the radar, right.
Yeah, I wouldn't. He was interviewed, but never really surfaced as a possibility that he was involved with the murder. Back then he had. I think the big break in the case was he had mentioned that he in his interviews that he was with George Jodwin that night and they were drinking, and that he left the home, George's house, and went home. And back then Arthur was living in Candia, and the distance between George Jodwin's house and Arthur Collins's house was probably about 10 minutes, because he was living in Candia, New Hampshire. But he had told the state police back then, or the people that interviewed him, that he got home around 9:30. I'm sorry, and from reading through the interviews and all that, it appeared that the murder probably took place between 10:30 and 11. One witness actually said that he heard the gunshots between right around 10:48. So we knew that was important, and when we read through it, and then we finally talked to an individual who knew that he had actually gotten home after 11 o'clock, between 11 and midnight. So we knew that meant this, and then we ended up talking to someone else who also said that he got home late.
So I got two questions. The first one would be on that. Those are things just in normal police work. Normal police work, like the law or anything else, is not like the movies. That's something it might have just slipped by them, and you brought a fresh set of eyes to that.
Right.
And you could see, you saw what somebody else didn't see.
Yeah, and you don't even know that. I mean, when you're reading through this, through the reports. You've got to any case that I've ever worked on. You've got to be good. You've got to work hard. You have to have a really good work ethic, but you also have to have a little luck. And I can tell you that throughout my career, I've never ever worked a case by myself. It's absolutely impossible, because you've got to talk to someone sometime down the road. You've got to, whether you're doing your research, whether you're on your phone, you're talking to someone in person. Someone is going to give you the information that you need. So it's not just you yourself that's doing it. Bobby Freitas was. It was great working with him. He's a very, very hard worker, and we actually enjoyed working together, and we did. I think we did a pretty good job at it.
You're talking about teamwork, and as we've seen in Ward 10, from our previous alderman and from you, teamwork is very important. A person that would set themselves up as the lone wolf or something, they just don't get the things done.
Well, even as alderman, I mean,
You have to
I'll
work
tell you, you do, and
others.
I work really, really well with John Avard. He's our school
Right.
board member,
A Republican.
yeah, and I reached out to him because, even you talk about community service. When I was 19 years old, I coached Pony League baseball.
Right.
And that was the first year I've ever coached, and I actually coached with Danny O'Neill. And so for 35 years, I coached baseball, basketball, and football. And one of the things you talk about, my philosophy is, remember where you came from, and give back. And I knew growing up, my mother raised 6 kids, and we played sports, and I knew that she couldn't afford the leagues that we're playing in, and I know we got assistance, and also the coaches that when I played baseball, basketball, and football, and the coaches that coached me, my brothers, my sister, they put a lot of time and effort into it.
Oh yeah.
So and I made it a point to make sure I got involved with every single league that I played in. I also got involved with Salvation Army, Big Brothers Big Sisters, things like the Boys and Girls Club, because it's important, because those are organizations that helped out my family growing up, and I made sure I gave back to them. And it's hopefully everyone does that, because it's really, really important.
Okay, we're going to get back to that. But just one more question about the cold case, and it doesn't have to be very long. The thing is, television and movies are edited. Life isn't. So, but the thing is about a cold case, unlike TV, it's not easy to make a cold case, is it?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's I'll tell you, I've got to give a lot of credit to Bob Jodwin. He was relentless. I mean, it's his brother that was murdered, and he wanted it to be solved. I mean, he I kid him about it. I joke to him about it. He sometimes he went about it the wrong way, because he was frustrated,
yeah.
And he was sending emails and things like that to different agencies that letting them know how unhappy he was.
Right. So he was seeking justice, which our justice system isn't always able to provide. But you also, the cold case being solved, also had another beneficent effect, a beneficial effect on other people that had been persons of interest. Did it not? It wasn't just the Godwin family, it was other people benefited from this solving.
Just like any case that I work on, there's victims, and there's victims,
Right.
and there's victims' families. And in this case, obviously the victim is deceased, but he has a family, and he also had friends. And the unfortunate thing with, and that's the thing that always motivated me to get in. When I do work on any of these cases, is I'm doing it for the victim, and I'm doing it for their family. In this case, there were a couple of people that were. And you know what? And I'm not blaming the state police, because they actually
Right.
did a pretty good job. These people were, not just on their radar as a possibility that they may have been involved, but a lot of these 2 guys, a lot of their friends thought there's a possibility they may be involved. So they had this cloud hanging over the head for over 10 years.
Which just doesn't affect them, but it affects their families too.
It does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And so there was 2 guys, and I can mention them: Rick Karen and Glenn Baruti. Glenn Baruti was the co-owner of Mr. I Buy and Sell, and Rick Karen was a very good friend of George's. He did hunting. He would go out hunting in his out in Auburn behind George's home, and so on. So they were grateful that they actually broke down when they went to court for the arraignment.
Yeah.
It was an absolute relief, and not only them but their family. I mean, I ended up running into a relative of Rick's, and they were just so told me how happy they were that we got the right guy.
See, there's all this, not in movies you often see, goes back to Les Miserables, the cop that's just, like obsessed or negative or, But for you, it's about giving back to the community and helping. But we've only got 5 minutes left, Bill. Let's talk. You said, remember where you came from, and I know that your philosophy is in getting involved and giving back. You've imparted that philosophy to your daughter, and didn't that have like a domino effect that helped Parker-Varney? I'm Parker-Varney, 1971, the first graduating class, which suddenly Parker-Varney is becoming this great success story. And your daughter had a small part in that.
Yeah, it was. And first of all, congratulations to Parker-Varney. What an awesome group of people, from the principal, the staff, the teachers, the students, the PTG group, the city year folks that help out at the school. What happened was, Lauren, my daughter, we both marched in the Veterans Day Parade on November 11th, and the day after, I was giving her a ride to school, and so we were talking about veterans, and she had written letters to veterans, I think like 30 some odd letters that she wrote.
We get those up at the VA hospital. Right. They'll be there for us.
So I asked her, I said, what do we do now? Now it's the day after Veterans Day. Do we forget about them again? And
that's she
got the point, and she knew, and I include myself, and that's how people are, because they've got their own lives and they move forward and so on. I said, well, maybe there's something we can do. Maybe, and then I spoke with her about, Liberty House. It's a homeless. They take care of homeless veterans, not only at their facility on Baker Street, which has 10 bedrooms, but they also, or 10 beds. But they also take care of about 300 additional homeless vets throughout the city of Manchester, and so I told her, I said, maybe we can do something. We could raise money. We can maybe get them food, clothing, or whatever. So I said, you know what, I'll reach out to Parker-Varney. So I called Amy Allen that afternoon, and I explained to her what we discussed.
Amy
Allen's the principal over at Parker-Varney. And Friday, that was a Wednesday, so 2 days later, she called me up and said that she had set up a meeting for Monday morning, November 17th, and asked if I could attend. And I said, sure. And it was her, three of her, they have 3 fifth grade classes. So it was the 3 teachers from the 5th grade classes and some students from the class. So we sat around, we discussed about what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, and so on. And I was in contact with the Liberty House, the director over there. And
how much money did you guys finally raise?
Well, our goal and their goal was $1,000, and now we're only talking 3 weeks, because what we did was I wanted to do it the week before Christmas to hand them a check, and we had a luncheon. MST, the folks at MST was awesome. We set up a luncheon. The kids that are involved with the culinary arts over there, awesome group. So, anyways, it was only 3 weeks from when we started.
You raised over $6,000.
Over $6,000, and it's the way they did it. They were selling candy canes. Right. They had a movie night. It was a Wednesday night where they showed the Polar Express, and the kids that were invited, they were wearing pajamas, and so it was pretty unique.
And that was part of that achievement is part of the reason that Parker-Varney, we only got about a minute and a half. That was part of the reason that Parker-Varney is honored now. What was the honor that
they were named the best elementary school in the state of New Hampshire, which is unbelievable for a school. They've come so far along.
Right. They were having some problems just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they were. And I'll tell you, again, their parents said that it all starts with the children, and you've got the teachers, the principal, the staff over there, the city year folks, and the parents. The parents get involved at Parker-Varney, and it shows. I mean, these kids. Whenever I go over there, they're always smiling. They're always happy.
Important for us. I believe important for an alderman with your philosophy, because your daughter is your daughter of this sense of community, rather than there are people in our political environment that are selfish and that wouldn't do this. And that's true. I know, Bill, you don't like to. You're not this man's not a politician. But it's important to promote community, and you've made a big impact on the ward in just your first term. I have to say that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and I enjoy it. I mean, the people I've met in Ward 10, it's been a great. That's why I'm running again, because I think it's important and I enjoy it.
And we forgive you for being a graduate of Central High. I'm West High, 1977. Central, our arch enemy. You became a great part of the Ward 10 community.
Yeah.
And you're a central part of that community. And I hope you're an alderman for as long as you want. And someday you'll have your portrait up there.
Like Bill Cashin?
With Bill Cashin, the great Bill Cashin.
He's the best.
And, there'll be one for Danny O'Neill, too, I'm sure. Well,
Yeah, thanks.
thank you very much, Bill, and thank you, Manchester, and we hope to see you next week at Ward 13.